All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Radical Enlightenment Podcast. I am so excited to have with me today Christiane Schroeter, and she is a health and happiness coach. She's got a PhD in health economics. She's been in the field for 20 plus years. And today we are going to jump into how do we create quick and effective wellness routines, wellness habits that are easy to integrate, easy to maintain, and get us where we want to be for optimal health. And we're talking mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional health with these practices. So, Christine, it's so great to see you, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. I can't wait to share some of my little wellness secrets because the emphasis really is on quick and making it super effective, especially as we're moving into the holiday season, into the new year. Everybody's busy, so let's do this.
I love it. I love it. So, I feel like the best way for us to start would be just kind of going through a day. That we can share a little bit about our own practices. I know in my book, a lot of priming the system has a lot of these opportunities there as well. But I'm really curious to see what works for you, what you've seen work for other people, and yeah, like you said, let's share around. So in the morning, start things off from waking. I know my few go tos. Uh, Lemon water, I do first thing. A little bit of breath work, a little bit of qigong, which is an Eastern calisthenic, Eastern practice we can call it.
Mhm.
Um, and all of that probably takes less than 10 minutes. And those are my go-tos after a lot of trial and error. But what are some early morning routines that you've created, you've discovered you use, and that you have clients have used as well?
Yeah, this is actually a great question because I'm a strong believer that if you start your morning out really putting the wellness already in there, it kind of like triggers the whole day like a domino effect and everything kind of like falls into place because you just have this feeling like the wellness infused your morning and so you're off to a really strong start for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So first when my alarm clock rings, I actually have to really emphasize, and that's something I tell my clients all the time, do not hit the snooze button. The snooze button is really, I call it the lose button. Don't do that, right?
You snooze, you lose.
Yeah, snooze is really there just to prolong your time in bed, but you're already awake and you might then oversleep. And then, secondly, it will cut down on the time that you have to get ready. So you're
Mm,
going to feel fully frazzled and you might cut out things that are otherwise important for a strong start into the day. So my alarm clock rings, and at that moment, I might think like a little bit of a body scan. I might think a little bit, all right, so what's coming up today? I might actually lay there for a second, but I know I'm going to get up.
mm,
So I don't lay there for like 15 minutes. I might there like for three, right?
yeah.
And then I immediately go to the kitchen and I actually start my morning. First thing is I drink my lemon water too.
Mm,
Um, I like the lemon water and I let that sit a little bit
yeah.
because I think that your body is still waking up just like as you are. And it resets your balance a little bit
Mm,
from laying down to now you're alert, you're walking around. And let the body do its thing with the lemon water
yeah.
because you don't want to be piling on all these things in the morning and you just slowly get started. And
Mm,
I actually do stretching then.
beautiful.
I've been doing the same stretching routine for years, and this is a fun fact because I know we have all these ambitions and goals.
Yeah.
Is for whatever reason, I want to become super flexible and do like the middle splits and the side splits, which I have no
Yeah.
idea why. It's not like I'm going to be a gymnast, but it's kind of like I never really knew how to do it, and now
Yeah.
that's just my thing. In the morning, I stretch. And
Yeah.
because I'm also a fitness instructor, I have not been injured for a long time, nor am I really ever getting sore. And I
Yeah.
think it kind of pushes it back to how I start my morning. So, lemon water, stretching, and I call it slow mornings. I give
Mm.
my body time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, and it gets you really touched on something that we've got coming up with the stretching, and this is something that I'm a big proponent of as well, of consistency over intensity. where and in yeah, you nailed it with the volume of morning practices as well, where we don't need to do 15, 20 different things because, you know, everybody's saying they got a little bit different slant on it, whether it's, oh, you got to start your morning at 4:30 and wake up and crush the day, or whatever the other, advice is coming from. So I think as an individual, streamlining what works for us and recognizing that goals can be really powerful, especially when we are non attached to the outcome.
Mhm.
So, like with your stretching example, I love that. Mine, for a long time, mine was always touching my feet,
Yes!
doing like a forward fold. Because I remember those. I don't know if you had this, but in elementary school, we had these fitness tests where they had the box and the tape measure on the box, and you have to get a certain amount, otherwise you weren't flexible enough. And I could barely ever touch my toes. Started doing yoga without necessarily a destination in mind, and the next thing you know, after a few years, a forward fold starts feeling really good,
Mhm.
and you're finding different depth in the stretch, you're finding different dimension, you're creating more flexibility within the body system, which I feel enhances our flexibility in our mental space. So there's a lot of really powerful quick win things that you do in the morning to just set yourself straight. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think, I love that you mentioned ears,
Mm.
because in general, it happens when we move through the holiday, it happens when the new year starts, that people expect quick results.
Yeah.
They think, "Oh, maybe if I do lemon water for 1 week, I'm going to lose a whole bunch of weight," or maybe if I start stretching after 1 week, I can touch my toes or it's something. You gotta give your body time, and I even feel this myself because I do lunges in my stretching. On
Mhm.
some mornings, my balance is, like, really off,
Sure.
and that totally happens, and I'm
Mm.
like, "Alright, maybe I didn't sleep well,
Yeah.
maybe there's s," and it's okay, it doesn't mean I'm gonna stop, it just
Yeah.
means that maybe on the next day it's on again,
Yeah.
and it has happened. So you have to keep the consistency in mind that, it's rather the fact that you do it every morning
Yeah.
and you give yourself grace, and it's kind of saying, "Good morning, body. Here we are, wherever you are, I'm meeting you right here,"
Yeah.
and welcoming that you are human and that some mornings you feel stronger than others.
Looking at it from an easefulness standpoint,
Yes.
and so many of us, we don't find a lot of space to be easeful with ourselves because we maybe didn't get a whole lot of easefulness, experiences when we were younger, and then we start getting critical, and to your point, like, oh, my balance was off today, so my lunges were a little bit wobbly.
Mhm.
If we're in a certain mindset, that could derail our whole day.
Yes.
So I feel like the more we can invite in that lightness of being, that lightness of mind, as we're in these practices where we're just doing it for the sake of doing it, we're not attached to the outcome. And that's where I find that we can really experience that grace more readily, as opposed to that nagging voice, or the self-depreciating or self-critical voice that seems to pop in so easily for a lot of us all the time, unfortunately. So, as far as kind of shifting, if we get into that space, and let's say somebody listens to this and they start doing the practice and they give it a month. And the only reason I mention a month is that's about the time frame that I recognized the benefit when I started doing lemon water myself.
Mhm.
And I've gone for the research. I really tried to dig deep on this. Does lemon water create more alkalinity within the body
Right.
or not? An alkaline system is really not one that is a host for inflammation at all, which is great. And I think for me it's a combination. So breath work is a big proponent that I use. Breath work and lemon water I find really kind of are beneficial to each other. And I experiment. So I always recommend everybody experiment with a lot of these, but don't onboard too much at once. Just pick one. So it could be movement. It could be starting with some lemon water. Those aren't too heavy lifting, so maybe we do a combination of lemon water and heavy and a light movement and see what that does for us.
Mhm.
But I found after about a month, I was really noticing, pulling back the lens and looking at the previous 4 weeks, really noticing an upward trend with lemon water, not only in my complexion, in the way I was looking and feeling physically, but also mental clarity.
Mm.
I wasn't reaching for coffee immediately as that thing to like help crawl me out of bed. That really that burst of hydration. And I like to call it bioavailable because I tried just straight water and I tried water with lemon. And when I tried straight, just plain tap water, plain refiltered water, I felt like I had a fishbowl in my stomach. Like it wasn't going anywhere. With lemon water, the best way I can describe it is it felt bioavailable, where it was just, it kind of got where, to your point, it gets where it needs to go. And you really like kind of wake up a lot of the cells in the body.
Yeah, I completely agree, and actually, I also love your advice about not studying too many things at one
Mm,
point, um, because you need to give your body time, but because I have a PhD in economics, there's also a thing to where, what's actually a variable right now and what's maybe fixed, right?
yeah.
So if you vary too many things at one point, at the end, say you don't feel great, you don't even know what it was that maybe didn't work out, because you changed so many things at the same time, or maybe vice versa. Something was amazing, and then you would like to tell your friend about it, and you're like, "Well, now I don't know because I started so many things at the same time. I don't even know anymore what it was." So, slowly weave them in.
Yeah.
3 to 4 weeks is actually a really great time to get used to it. And at the same time, it's also, we never expect, magic results. So if you ever see that somebody says, "Oh, yeah, do this," and you're going to see, these magic results, and it's
Right.
probably not true.
Right.
With the lemon water, I also want to say that, we have a lemon tree in our backyard. So I live in California here, right?
Mm.
And it's kind of very cool, for me that I'm using the lemons from my yard in the morning. So it kind of like, I love that I'm using them. We go through so many lemons.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievable because I also make salad dressing with it,
Oh,
etc.,
yeah.
etc. So if you do lemon water, you gotta purchase actually lemons and squeeze them,
Yeah.
and that's another thing. It's kind of a cool ritual to squeeze the lemons in the morning.
I'm the same way.
It's like, "Work, work,"
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
it's actually kind of nice because you like, alone the fact that you squeeze it is already like this mental resetting, "Okay, it's morning, and here I am
Right.
again."
Well, it's like integrating it into, in some ways it's interesting. It can be a mindfulness practice
Yeah,
where our mind is actually more free to play.
yep,
When we're doing something that's a pattern, and I find this with cooking a lot, where I will find myself prepping for dinner and doing a lot of, chopping and breaking down of vegetables and things. That's a meditation for me.
mhm,
It wasn't always. There was, definitely times where I was very intense with like, "Oh, I gotta do this and that." But what I found is that even, those moments, those in between moments, we can catch little glimpses of this state of peaceful presence where we are just squeezing a lemon, where we
yep.
are just, cutting some fruit or whatever we're eating. So I think those opportunities are always there for us. And when we're talking about mindfulness, a lot of the challenges that we can get into, especially in the morning, are being mindful about what we reach for. And again, we get into these habituated patterns where it's like if we reach for sugar right away and we reach for caffeine right away, then we start to get a little more dependent. And then we're really just stripping our system of a lot of nutrients that we could be utilizing because we're kind of going for these, I'd say, less than optimal sources of nutrition. So kind of take us through a day when we can be in this more mindful place of what we're consuming from a nutritional standpoint, starting with breakfast. Because a lot of times, to your point, I'm running late, I'm stressed, I got to just grab something easy and run. So, what are some more ways that we can invite in that mindfulness earlier in the day?
Yeah, this is a great question. And actually, I mentioned at the beginning that I have some secrets of what I'm doing. So, the lemon water, stretching. And so now the third thing is I drink, and I'm actually kind of careful about using the word drink.
Mm.
Um, I kind of like chew, let's maybe use that word, a green smoothie.
Okay.
And a lot of people look at smoothies as something that they quickly chuck in between, maybe even in the car. So they're
Mm.
buying a smoothie and they're just kind of like chuck it down. Now, maybe take a step back and think about what's in there. in a smoothie are a lot of fruits and vegetables, and while they are broken down and they're easier bioavailable, to use your words right there, it's still a lot of fiber for your body to digest, especially if you're drinking it with a straw and you're just kinda like, "Blub, blub, blub," you're just goggle. So, I am definitely a person, I have a very sensitive stomach. If I were to drink down that smoothie and I wouldn't mindfully eat it, that's
Mm,
why I love the title mindful eating practices, I would get super bloated and it
yeah.
would be my stomach would be like, kind of like the Autobahn of some sort. It would be like, "Ta-da! We're going to expect now you're going on rapid fire digestion." And it's just too much, right?
Yeah.
So I rather take the scenic route, so to speak, and I want to mindfully enjoy what's in the smoothie. And so I slowly start digestive juices in my stomach,
Mhm,
in my mouth, so that
mhm.
my stomach is ready.
Yep.
So I put some smoothie in my mouth, and it's weird at the beginning, but then you really get used to it. You kind of like chew. You kind of like chew. So a green smoothie has a lot of fiber, so I use
Mhm.
spinach and kale, romaine. There is also lemon again in there, mango. And,
Beautiful.
all that's blended up and all this green, glorious smoothie, I slowly chew it and take my time to go through it. And that's very mindful, and at the same time, it's nearly like eating.
Mhm.
You're starting your day with something that's very easily digestible, but at the same time, I'm already by the time I hit work, I have so many vitamins, fiber, and the chlorophyll in my body that my brain is just like alert. And I love that because I think that we sometimes are very hard on ourselves and
Yeah,
like, "Oh, I have to drink coffee now because I'm tired." But
right.
we underestimate what greens actually can do for us.
Well, and
So
especially when we're reaching for them in that capacity, and I mean, it's, we're we're creating that, not to belabor the term, but that bioavailability because of the practices. And so, if you're trying to start, if we can think of metabolism like a furnace, we
yep.
need to add coal to the furnace to keep it burning. And if we add too much coal, to your point about taking it easy when we're starting to consume food in the morning, that can douse the flame, that can put it out altogether. But if we let it kind of ramp up with us into the day, so maybe you do whatever is for you, and if it's lemon water, that's fantastic. And to your point, give it 20 25 minutes after lemon water. Let the water do its thing. Then take on some light nutrition. See how that does for you. Like, encourage that fire to get burning again, and then we can start adding to it. And I love that you mentioned plant fiber. And if we're looking at kind of the gut health, the gut brain, the brain, I really look at it as it's all connected. So when we are nourished in our gut and we're informing the gut brain of a bountiful, harvest coming in immediately, 100%, that's going to affect our clarity of mind, our because everything's getting where it needs to without a lot of saturated fats, without a lot of processed foods. And especially in a day and age where insoluble plant fiber is so bereft from our diet, it's vitally important to our biome, to all the microbes and bacteria and viruses naturally occurring in our entire system, to really give them those raw materials that it might not be nutritionally important for us, the human part, but for the gut bacteria, the gut health, that plant fiber is, I mean, from the research I've done in my own experience, it's I'm not going to say it's everything, but it's a lot. It's very,
It's
very
everything. I love
impactful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say, when I switched to having green smoothies in the morning, I'm just gonna be honest with the audience, I was actually kind of scared.
Mm,
Because at the beginning, I had yogurt and granola, and so I basically started with a lot of proteins. I am
mm,
a fitness instructor, and so I was like, "Oh, gotta have the protein," and eating something smoothies have protein, don't get me wrong. It's, per ounce, it's
yeah.
actually more than in a yogurt.
Mm,
However, it's in a very different form, and it might not be as obvious to the listener. So I was actually very scared. I thought I'm probably going to get super hungry, and when I teach my workout class, I'm probably going to get lightheaded, and it actually did the opposite. I
wow.
was like, "Oh my gosh, I can, like, move mountains here," you know?
That's awesome. So then for you, then do you have a bigger meal midday? Do you have a big meal? Do you do a bunch of small meals?
And more like a bunch of small meals.
Okay.
That's really how I move throughout the day. I try to really get as many fruits and vegetables in the day as I can, and, I personally follow a plant-based diet
Mhm.
as it is, and that's a personal choice, and it works well for me. I never feel like I'm starving or I'm hungry, and when I can, try to go as raw as possible,
Mhm.
really going back to the source and trying to figure out, is there a way that I can eat more seasonal? Is there a way can I keep more local? Is there a way can I maybe support farmers at the farmers market and interact with them and ask them personally, what's in season right now? And purchase things I've never seen before, some kind of
Yeah.
funny squash or anything like that. It's like, all right, going for that. So I'm very mindful about my eating,
Mm.
but at the same time, I also try to support my body, for what it's doing during the day.
So yeah, get out of that comfort zone.
Yep.
Get away from the taupe and mauve tones of food. Invite in more colors. Maybe, to your points. I mean, supporting local agriculture. Not only I mean, from my own personal experience, we've traveled a little bit in Europe, and getting fresh produce from a market, even in the center of Paris, paled in comparison to, or I should say, what we get in a grocery store domestically, paled in comparison to what we were finding in France. Like the most delicious carroty tasting carrot ever.
Mhm.
And the closest I've found stateside is looking at, we do a CSA box, community supported agriculture from a local farm. And that's the closest quality produce I've found to more kind of EU standards than
Mhm.
compared to what's currently in the States. So when I'm as we're talking, what I'm hearing is a lot of not only awareness but also self education. Like it's very important to educate ourselves not only about what works for us, because plant based is going to work for some, it might not work for others. Waking up and jumping in with a pint of lemon water might sound like a fun challenge for some and might sound like torture for others. So again, this is really a hyper individual journey of awareness, information, and keeping what works and letting go maybe by the wayside what doesn't. But that's always going to be an individual journey.
Mhm.
So with that, I'll do like two bigger meals and then maybe a few, a handful of nuts or a piece of fruit here and there in between. um, I've kind of slipped into some inadvertent intermittent fasting, I should say.
Same. Same, yeah.
So what it is, because there's again a lot of opinions out there, a lot of different ways to do it. So um, any other than give it a go and find out what works for us. Any guidance that you can share between, the 3 meals a day, the 4 to 6 smaller meals a day, intermittent fasting, no intermittent fasting? Is it really an individual equation, or do you find there are some universals that generally work for most people?
The universals that work for most people are hydration, and I'm just going to show you right now. Here's my vessel, right? No
Never
matter what
without it.
diet you follow, you might I mean, and I have to actually be honest with you, Kevin. My husband is a total meat eater. He calls
Mhm.
himself an omnivore. I have
Yep.
no problem with that, right?
Yeah.
Because then what I'm not going to tell him what to eat. He's his own human being. He can
Yeah.
decide what he wants to eat. The one thing that I emphasize and I ask him every morning is like, "Did you take some fruit along?" So we gotta eat fruit no matter how
Yep.
much meat he adds during the day. And did you take your water bottle along, your
Yeah.
reusable water bottle? So no matter what diet you follow, you have to hydrate your body. Ideally, the way that I do it, getting up in the morning, I really taper it out 3 or 4 o'clock. So this is the
Okay.
last thing that I'm probably in this last thing that I'm gonna drink, and I really, really, really get slower, for
Mhm.
2 reasons. A is as I'm transitioning to dinner time and preparation of dinner time, I'm trying not to add so many fluids when I'm eating a larger meal. I'm trying to separate those 2 things out. It's nearly like I'm giving my body grace. It's like, "All right, you get ready for the big meal, so let's not dilute that good meal. We wanna
Yeah.
have, the focus, all the enzymes, like, we want it all, like, concentrated in there so that it really your body can just use it and
Yes.
get ready for the night instead of like overwhelming it. We got fluids here, we got meal here. So my recommendation is no matter what diet you follow, make it as easily accessible. And I've never met a person that drank too much. Never.
Right.
I mean, people all the time that don't drink enough, but it's not like, man, today I just drank too much water. It was like that, too much water.
Yeah.
Not never.
You never hear, "Oh, I'm feeling great. I must be overhydrated."
No,
Right.
never. And
It's
I also going to say this right now, but that's just because I eat plant-based. I never met a
mhm,
person that actually didn't have enough protein.
mm,
Mm. And that's, something that is it's usually the number one question when I say I'm plant-based, like, "Where do you get your protein from?"
everywhere. Literally everything I put in my body has protein.
Yeah,
Well, and I feel like that's kind of a misconception in a similar way that, the diet fads from the '60s and '70s where everything was low fat, but they pumped sugar into everything.
yeah,
And so now it's like, "Oh, no, actually fats are vitally important, not only for physical function, but for brain health as
right,
well."
right,
And so, getting out of these dogmatic loops, I think, of this or that, or, "Oh, no, I need protein." To your point, I was doing research, and the average American gets about 100 grams of protein a day.
oops.
And what's kind of like the baseline as far as function is 50.
Yeah,
And unless we're muscle building or eating for a purpose or a cause, like we're training or we need a high caloric intake because we have a high caloric output, to your point, by and large, we are individually over protein because we've kind of slipstream into this, like, oh, you need protein, but it's really just one component. It's not the end all be all.
right. Yeah, and usually, given that we just talked about hydration, it's sometimes misinterpreted, but people feel,
Mm,
I think I need a snack. I'm kind of hungry." Well, what did you drink the last time? I mean, maybe you're actually not hungry. Maybe you're actually thirsty, right? So
absolutely.
don't immediately grab the cheese or whatever, which
Yeah.
that is not bad itself, but it could just have been underhydrated. You know,
That's so huge. And it's so funny. My wife and I were talking, and in school, our daughter's now a senior in high school, and we all take your water bottle. And I remember, like, I barely even think I drank out of a faucet or a water fountain. And I'm like, how did we ever survive elementary school? And I feel like we never drank water.
right?
But what I found is, keeping that hydration up throughout the day. And there's different benchmarks where some people are like, oh, you need 8 ounces per pound of whatever the equation is. I actually just saw some recent research into it within the last year or two, and they said, regardless of what anybody says, just go off of what your pee looks like. If
Yeah.
your pee is generally light yellow to clear, outside of drinking caffeine or alcohol, then you're probably pretty well hydrated. If it's
Mhm,
any shade of yellow darker than very light yellow, grab some water.
mhm.
And I just love that we've kind of taken it back to that self-evident, kind of approach where, it's like, oh, did I get my ounces in? No, we don't need to worry about that. Just give a peek when you go to the bathroom, and that'll tell you all you need to know about if you need more water or not.
Completely, and it's actually, great that you bring this up because the other thing, the approach of, like, counting water or ounces or anything, it sounds stressful. Don't
Right.
make it stressful. I mean, we gotta have fun, and
Yeah.
that's why, like, you notice I have, like, a sticker on my water bottle.
Yeah.
I mean, just make it fun. Just, like,
Yeah.
put a sticker on there and buy a water bottle, but that brings you joy, that works for you. You don't wanna necessarily just think about the numeric part of it, just like with
Right.
body weight. How does it feel? Like, how do you
100%.
you know?
Well, and we're really getting back to that self-directed living of, and I love that you said that. How does this feel? And to your point, we really need to give whatever we're doing a little bit of time to recognize that. So what I like to say is just set it and forget it. Set it, choose one, maybe two things, set it and forget it for a month,
Yep.
commit to it, and then review after the month, because you're not going to necessarily see the gains or the improvement in a day or two or three or four or five. And if we don't see it in that first week or feel it in that first week, then the second week can feel like an even bigger climb, as opposed to just integrating it without attachment to the outcome and just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. And when we're hydrated, when we have more bioavailable nutrition, we're not eating as much processed food, generally our stress levels are going to be not as high. So even just that, hydrating in the morning, easing into kind of ramping up our metabolism, not hitting it too hard with things that are too heavy and dense, going along with an eating plan or program or approach that works for us based on our lifestyle, based on our nutritional needs, based on our knowledge. What are some other ways besides integrating kind of the nutritional, the hydration aspects? Because so many of us are just saturated in stress all day long, whether we're conscious of it or not. So, what are some ways that you shift out of stress when you recognize it, or is it something where you've just kind of got your routine in place to combat it before it even starts?
I love that question, and so maybe I will kind of like give you some pointers of what I
Yeah.
do, but I want to also clarify one thing. Stress is actually really important for our life. So if we were to take stress out, we would be actually not leading a normal life. Because we need stress. So think about this in terms of we maybe move to animals.
Mm.
If they are not stressed in terms of their alertness, they would like probably run into the street and get hit by a car, right? So you need certain stressors to keep you alert and to keep you on your toes, so to speak,
Mm.
because we need to also figure out, oh, this doesn't sound good, and that's maybe like a stressor in itself. So it's a certain amount of stress is good. So what I do is I know things that stress me in the morning. If I were to grab my phone and I
Mm.
would get up and I would immediately look at my emails, most of the emails are work related, it would totally stress me out. I would probably
Right.
start lifting my shoulders and like, my breathing would be like terrible. And I'd be like, oh my gosh. My whole stretching routine would be like totally off.
All clenched up, yeah.
I'd fall over on that line. So, what I do is I have to be very conscious about not doing that. Because
Mm.
at the beginning, I would get up and like, oh, scroll, scroll, scroll. I'm not supposed to stretch right now, but this is so
Yeah.
important. So, when I put on my watch, I wear my watch, but I don't scroll through my watch and look at the notifications.
Great.
So, I kind of make sure that when I'm ready for the emails, because they're always going to be there.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter whether you check them immediately or later. Um, when I'm ready for it, I'm feeling I'm in a mental space to where I can digest it. So I have
Be
time.
because you've prepped your system. You've
Yes.
given yourself that space in the morning to prep your system to then be able to be ready to step into it.
Yep. That's my best stress
Yeah,
busting technique. And the other one is, and I'm very diligent about that. It's a new thing that I probably started maybe a year or two ago, is I always go for walks.
beautiful.
The walks are so important, and, I hardly ever look at my phone. Well, 2 reasons. A is, I'm afraid of, like, going to trip or something,
Yeah,
or I, like, run against a lamp pole or something
right.
like this. I actually wanna look around. But then the second thing is that I usually listen to an audiobook,
Mm.
because it's super stress busting to me, and I read, or some people say, "It's not really reading." Yeah, right. It's still a book. Whether you're reading it, I actually think in terms of our senses, it's good when you listen to a book because it makes you a better listener in life, and many of
Yeah.
us are not good listeners. So I listen to about an audiobook per week. Um,
Okay.
and I go, by now the speed of listening is pretty fast. When I
Yeah.
listen to it, it's 1.75, 1.5. But then when I walk, I get a lot of the book in.
Oh, yeah.
So I try.
Especially
Yeah.
yeah, especially at that 1.75.
Oh, for sure, and
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about it is because I walk and I listen to the book, I still remember where I was at certain parts of of my walk.
Now so you almost gauged the book by where you remember being on the walk.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
beautiful.
I
I love
remember
it.
turning the curve
Yeah,
when this happened in the book.
that's
And
beautiful.
it's actually it's a win-win in itself with the listening to the book, because I realized I don't listen to books otherwise, or I don't
Mm,
read otherwise. And it really bugged me. It was stressful to me. And at the same time, because now I listen to these books when I walk, it still allows me to really focus on nature with my
yeah,
eyes.
yeah,
So I still look around and I have the ability to do it. And sometimes I don't listen to anything at all. I just walk.
yeah.
Sometimes I meet a
I
friend, right? Yeah.
Well, and if you're not present, if you're not aware of your surroundings and the situation you're in, you could miss that friend, or you could miss that bird call, or that, the way the cloud looks, or, any of those really powerful, peaceful, present moments of awareness, just being.
Yep.
And you're hitting a triple threat with the walk, where we're walking, so we're rebounding. So a rebounding can be walking, running, heel drops, jumping jacks.
Good.
These are really positive physiological disruptions to really shift us out of a stress response. So you're hitting it with rebounding, you're adding in breath work because you're breathing as you're walking, and you're adding time in nature. And anytime we can combine kind of stress busting approaches, I feel like it's more beneficial. And so yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to mention yesterday, or maybe on Black Friday, I noticed they have these
Mm.
treadmills that go under your desk.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, hmm, that's actually not going to work for me.
Yeah.
I can't see myself typing and walking at the same time. I would probably constantly push pause and I'm like, hold
Yeah.
on. I'm
Yeah,
just
hold on. Yeah.
working at the same time. But I respect that people do this.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. I've got a stand-up desk, and that works for me.
Yeah.
And usually I'll stand up for the morning, and then I'll sit down, early afternoon, and then I'll probably stand up for the last little bit of the day if I feel like it. But again, it varies. But yeah, it's whatever works for you. I will say, if a lot of times we're trying to combine physical activity with other things.
Yep.
And I feel, and this might be counterintuitive, but one way we can combat stress is recognizing that it is never going to get done, whatever it is. There will always be something else on the list. There will always be another thing to do. There will always be another email to get back to. And so if we can start to shift our relationship to our work, to our environment, to our bosses and colleagues or clients, and really be mindful and dedicated with our time for ourselves. So even if it is 5, 10 minute, maybe 15-minute walk outside that's dedicated to that experience without distraction, I feel might be and is probably even more beneficial than if we're trying to power load and combo drinking our green smoothie while on the treadmill, while replying to emails first thing in the morning or something
Mhm.
like that.
I
So
completely agree. Yeah.
what would you share with people who are in that place of, I don't have enough time,
Mhm.
there's not enough space, I can't, I can't integrate that, I can't do that. What would you suggest for people that are in that space?
Yeah. Say walking. Let's maybe grab that example because we just talked about that. It doesn't actually require even that you wear workout clothing.
Yeah.
So if you can add that, and it could be a 10-minute walk before you leave to work, before you
Mm,
sit in the car, maybe there's traffic, et cetera, it will be actually really resetting your day and getting off on a strong balance because you already got those steps in, you got the fresh air in, you saw some nature, which is really important. I like to walk around and I kind of like look at, I like to look at the flowers that are growing. I like to look what the neighbors are doing. Now they're
mm,
starting to decorate and it's kind of neat. And it's actually not requiring me to do something drastically different from how I'm going to look at work.
yeah,
So now I make that time. If I were to be at work, I can still walk around outside of my work. Let's say maybe I was worried, oh, I wouldn't get a parking lot or who knows what. I can still walk around there. And the other thing, of course, you can do is, let's say, maybe you're going grocery shopping. Maybe you just park a little further away from the store, right? You don't need to park right next to it. We
yeah,
all have shopping carts. And then you just, do that as well. So you can get those steps in little hacks. And
yeah,
even if 10 minutes sounds, it's super overwhelming, you probably notice yourself scrolling through social media or doing something else for 10 minutes, and it might not seem like it's 10 minutes, but you're like, "I can't believe it. I just
Yeah. Where'd the time go?
where did it go? Cat videos." Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And then you're all of a sudden noticing, "I should have" well, don't be so hard on yourself. "I should have done the
Right.
10-minute workout." Don't even worry about it. It's done now, right?
Yeah.
It's done now. But I have these really cute timers, and actually I have one on my desk here. I will show you. I have these really cute timers,
So it's almost
and
like an egg timer, like a kitchen timer type of
yes,
thing. Yeah.
most simplistic
Perfect.
thing, don't use your phone, because if you
Yeah.
put a timer on your phone, you're gonna look at your phone and you're going to get sucked in the vortex again. Don't do that. So I use something that does not have anything and it's very visual. Plus many of us don't even know to read a clock.
Right.
It teaches you analog timing, right? So now I pull this up. I like 25 minutes. It's the Pomodoro technique and then 5-minute break.
Nice.
And whether you were sitting or standing or something, you have worked for
Yeah.
25 minutes and you didn't get distracted. So that's my biggest recommendation.
Yeah.
Um, 10
Short
minutes, 5 minutes.
short bursts that doesn't need to be, "Oh, I didn't get my 3 hours in the gym in."
Nope.
It and even that 10 minutes, what I find is, I'll get into the flow. I tend to, if I'm working, I'll drop in and I'll pick my head up and like 5 hours have gone by if I'm doing something I'm really excited about. And I find if we can, even if so one thing I'll do is I like to challenge myself. And I
Mhm.
feel like this doesn't need to be any longer than 10 minutes.
I do it all the
And
time.
we can meet us exactly where we're at. So let's say we're just starting a fitness routine, or we're just starting to back to get mobile after not being mobile for a while. It can be walking for 10 minutes around the block and seeing how many laps I get in. But I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm just curious. How many laps can I get in 10 minutes?
Yep.
Or if we're a little bit more, we've got some more consistent conditioning, an under 10-minute mile is a pretty good mile time. So if there's a
Very
track nearby and if we really want to hit it hard, go run for 10 minutes on a track.
Mhm.
Another thing I like to do is give myself the challenge of, I call it a century workout, where it's 100 of something. So it could be 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and crunches, 100 burpees, which I've done. But they don't have to be all done at the same time.
Mhm.
So, and the other thing I've kind of, even backed it out to 50 push-ups in a day. But when I'm doing a push-up, I'm very conscious of my core and my form, because these are kind of the 50 I'm looking at. And maybe I'll do 20 and then go do something else. And then I'll do 10 and then I'll do another 20. We can break it up. It doesn't have to be all at the same time. Or to your point, when you set that 25, you get in, you get some work done, you take that 5 minutes, we can do a quick mini workout in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Get a little bit of blood moving, get the breath, a little bit more challenged in the body. Or it can just be breath work for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
If you want a heck of a workout, do some intense breath work for 5 minutes, and that's going to change your not only your whole day. You do that for a month straight, that'll change your life.
I completely agree. Yeah.
And so a lot of times we hear workout, and it's like, oh, I have to go to the gym, I have to put on the workout clothes, I have to commit, blah blah blah. It's like, no, all you need is some comfortable shoes, and you can pretty much do anything. You don't need to break a heavy sweat. You don't need to be drenched to get something beneficial. So I think starting to change our relationship to those perceptions can be hugely beneficial. And then to your point, like taking the pressure off, really hitting that pressure release valve of our expectations of ourselves, or what we see other people doing, and then judging and comparing against somebody else who is living a completely different life than we are. So there's really no space for it. And getting back to that place of just being okay with exactly where we're at. And I myself, that was a challenge I ran into. I've run for a lot of my life, and a comfortable distance has been a 5K, so about 3 miles. And I've just like everybody dealt with various periods of more mobility and more exercise, and then injuries and life and things get in the way, and sometimes we're less mobile. And what I found a couple of years ago was I was really critical of myself when I get back on the kind of horse, back into the routine, and I couldn't run a 5K all the way through, and my cardio wasn't there, and I was mad at myself, and I was sad, and I was judging myself. And what I found that really helped that was doing a lot of inner work. Really unpacking a lot of those shoulds, the need tos, the have tos, and starting to differentiate where those inputs are really coming from, and if that's even our voice behind those ideas. And that really got me to this place of being a lot more okay with exactly where I was at any given moment of exercise. Um, so if it is someone who's just starting out
Mhm.
and or we're getting back into it, are any tips or any kind of hacks that you've found that can help get more consistency over the intensity and get us to that place of like, we mentioned it. Okay, we're giving ourselves 30 days. We're not going to be attached to the outcomes, just going to do it. Anything additional that can really support us in these, challenging climbs as we're getting back into some routines that are healthy.
For sure, and I am a fitness instructor, so I teach at a recreation center, and I see a lot of people actually, this has been an interesting year, 2023. Pretty much every class that I teach, I always see people coming in for the first time.
That's great.
So that I think that's 2 things. First is other people that came in for the first time felt so comfortable that they told their other friends that haven't worked out. So I create a very warm and welcoming environment. So that's
Yeah.
a good compliment right there. So I know how hard it is, especially to go to a gym where you're entering and all what you see are maybe other people that look very fit. And for you, it seems like this total uphill climb to get there, right? So first things first, these people that are fit probably will not even notice you. So there's no
Yeah.
so, if you make it awkward, it will be awkward. But otherwise, nobody really cares
Yeah.
at all because they're especially if there's a lot of mirrors. They're probably looking at themselves right
Yeah.
there. So don't worry about it at all.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is um, first, and it was the same with the water. Is there something that you need to work out more? Do you need sneakers? Do you need some jogging pants? Do you need maybe a nice workout top? Do you need a rain jacket because where you live, maybe we're walking into a cooler temperature in the morning. So if you feel like, yeah, maybe yes and yes and yes, right, think a little bit about that because you want to make your workout as easy as possible. So in my car, in the trunk, I don't only have one, but I have two mats, two different yoga mats. I drive around, and if I were to be in a traffic jam, I literally could get out and I could do a
Yeah.
yoga thing right there.
Do an
Um,
asana on the side of the car.
yeah, and why do I have I also have water bottles in there.
Mhm.
And why do I have that? Well, A, first of all, I have children, and there's all the time like, "I'm so thirsty." I'm not gonna stop and buy water. I
Right.
have it right there. And
Yeah.
secondly, it could be that I'm at a place and maybe I forgot my yoga mat. I need my yoga mat. I'm at the beach and I'm like, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I'm not just gonna sit around there. I can do some quick stretching right now."
Yeah.
So you need to make the tools be where you are.
Yeah.
If you are all day at your work, maybe you're going to have a yoga mat. I have one at my work. I have one under my desk. I have a foam roller on my desk too.
Yeah.
I have sneakers right there in my office. I have a
I
little
love it.
cabbie, and that's full of all that stuff. So you have to make sure that where you are, you're going to see these things. So think about it this way. You're opening a cabinet, and I know a lot of people do this at work, right? They have a little drawer in their desk, and the sweets are in there.
Right.
Like, "Ooh, there are my snacks," right?
Yeah.
Well, you open the drawer, and your sneakers, and your towel, and your water bottle is in there, and you're like, oh, maybe I should go work out now," because you totally forgot, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
zone.
Got into the workday. Yeah.
Yeah. So my recommendation to you is that you need to put things to where you get the visual reminder and to where you could weave it in. So
Yeah.
think nearly like the workouts are like the little sprinkles of joy, sprinkle them in. And I had a client actually, and she was like, "Well, but then I walk by the whatever candy bowl or the cabinet, and there are all the snacks in there." And I said, "Okay, so you know those Polaroid cameras? Take a picture of your sneakers and put it right there in the candy bowl, right? Put it right
Nice.
there. And then when you walk by, you're like, So if you are just getting started, it's not part of your habit. Don't be hard
Right.
on yourself, but you have to make it a habit so that after a while you don't you don't even think about it anymore. At the beginning, you have to think, okay, so what do I do in the morning? I usually do that and that. So stack new habits on top of things you already do, and that will make it much easier to transition. And
Yeah,
if you don't do it one day, that's all right too. Don't do it the next day, that's okay too.
yeah.
I mean, that's why January 1 is such an arbitrary day to start with new habits. How about you just start it on the 6th of December because it's St. Nicholas Day in Germany?
Yeah, right.
I
Exactly.
have
Yeah,
no
it's as
idea.
right. It's as significant really when we're looking at it. It's like,
Yep,
well, why not right now?
today's a good
As
day.
you're listening to this podcast, get up, go for a
Today.
walk.
Yep,
Do some laps around your room, go outside, take some breaths of fresh air. So as you're
start with
talking,
one push-up.
yeah. Oh,
A
beautiful.
wall push-up, those are the best ones, against the
Well,
wall or the
yeah,
door.
absolutely. Stand up and sit down into a chair 10 times.
Awesome, it's a good workout, it's actually pretty good for your core.
Absolutely. And what I was hearing with what you were saying about, have the things that you are intending to use and where you want to be going in front of you. And this for me, that goes back to a stress busting technique, and I like to call it staffing our weaknesses.
Ah, yeah.
And I use lists. So I make lists all day so I don't have to remember things. I don't have to remember what I'm working on. I have to remember what I'm doing. So that's one stress busting technique I use. But as we're getting into these routines, staff our weaknesses by having the things in front of us that we want to use, that we're gearing towards using, but we might not have in practice just yet. Because if it's in front of you, it's going to be easier to use the good and the bad, to your point. Candy bowls in front of you, it's going to be a lot easier to eat candy. If you've got some things that are more directed in a healthy direction, it can provide the same benefit on the opposite side. Instead of reaching for that handful of M&Ms, it could be, I'm going to go for a walk, and then, oh, I remember I had that banana in my bag, so I'm going to
Yep.
have a half a banana with some walnuts.
Mhm.
And yeah, one step at a time, strong foundation, stay out of judgment. And the other thing I gleaned when you shared about the students in a class inviting friends, find somebody or a group that you're aligned with. If we can make working out fun, that changes it, and it's not a workout. It's a fun out. For me,
Oh,
growing
that's
up,
a good name, a funnel.
a fun out. For me, my thing was surfing. I got into it when I was about 12, and it quickly became my everything. It was physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It was just, I'm in the ocean, I'm breathing, I'm paddling. It's a chaotic environment. There's a lot of changing, shifting, elements going on. But it can be as simple as finding a fitness instructor that you really
Mm,
align with, that lights you up. It can be finding a class or a walking group or a hiking group or a CrossFit group where you feel supported, and you might be pushing your comfort zone a little bit. And to your point about people in the gym, nobody cares. And
no.
if they do, they're not worth caring about. And most times, if you take that step into something that is maybe a little out of your comfort zone, or doesn't feel like, oh, this doesn't feel safe, I can almost guarantee those communities, if they are in a mind frame that most are, like jujitsu studios and a lot of CrossFit studios, they're going to welcome you with open arms, and they're going to cheer you for every little, every kip up if you're a CrossFitter, or every time you learn a new hold, or how to get out of how to cross guard in jujitsu, just pulling from a few things like that. Like, you will be celebrated. Like that. If you find a thing you love, do that thing, especially if it can get you breathing.
Yeah, and I do that at my classes too, to where people will come and I will ask, is anybody for the first time? And they will come to me. And then I say, oh, yeah, here, Megan, you have been here before, right? So, Megan, remind me of your name again.
Yeah,
Oh, Tina. Megan, meet Tina. Because Megan has been here. There was a time when she was the first timer, right?
yeah,
So, and then immediately like hook up Megan with Nina, and we are all good. And
yeah.
it's taking off the pressure of the person reaching out to me and feeling maybe awkward or uncomfortable because Megan is going to be, there with her in the
Yeah,
audience, and it makes it nice. It builds community.
I love it. So, what about time of day with workout? I know a lot of people are, it's like, oh,
Yep.
you got to get it in the morning, or, oh, no, I don't work out till afternoon, or I love my workouts after work in the evening. Is it really personal preference, or have you found one is more beneficial than the other?
That's a really great question. For me, the stretching works well in the morning, and then winding down before dinner, I usually do a Pilates workout. So those are the things I do on my own.
Mhm.
Now, I teach fitness classes too, and what I noticed for myself is that I don't like to do a lot of the strong cardio workouts super early in the morning. I know people really, really love that. For me, that's just something, maybe it goes along with my slow mornings. It's sometimes
Right.
too much for me. So I
Yeah.
like the earliest cardio workout that I do is I teach a spin class at 10 or 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that's, like mid-morning going to lunchtime, and that works well. At the same time, on the other side of the day, after dinner, I don't work out anymore. I
Yeah.
might go for a walk, but I kind of, I don't feel comfortable really working out when I have a full belly.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
actually, I feel just like I start my day with a slow morning. I wanna start my day slow, and I wanna end my day slow. It optimizes my sleep, and
I
if I
love that.
feel that "Oh my gosh, I still have to, like, do, like, whatever, lifting weights or something like that," I think that would be mentally telling my body to wake up instead of winding down.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, everybody's individual. And
Yeah,
so I think the biggest and I'm kind of the same way. Like, if I'm doing any heavier cardio, it's probably going to be between like 10 and 2.
yeah,
I do a little bit of, like I mentioned, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of, kind of waking the body up in the morning. And then, so again, we got to figure it out for ourselves. And
yeah,
this is part of the beauty part of not only moving towards more self sufficiency, self awareness, and potentially even self realization, but also self-resiliency, where we give ourselves the space to find what works for us. We can now create, to your point about that strong foundation, we can just keep adding layers to this really strong foundation, so we're more supported throughout life just by our own actions, by our own positive direction, moving in it towards a place we want to explore more.
right. And yeah, what's important too is, it just like, some people might jump out of bed in the morning or they wake up by themselves, they don't even need that alarm clock,
Yeah,
and some others don't. That's
yeah,
totally fine. Some people, are working out in the evening is great for them and it makes them super sleepy, and we're all different.
yeah.
It's just we have to be respecting how we are different, you
And I'd
know?
say I'd say even if there is that, I get off work and I'm ready to go, get a big workout in,
Yeah.
I still feel that we can create that slow space.
Mhm.
And it again, it's up. Sometimes our slowdown starts at 5 p.m. because that works for us and that's where we're
Yeah.
at. Sometimes our slowdown can start at 9 p.m. But I do feel there is a really important factor to that shift
Mhm.
between from morning to day and from day to evening. So there's these two shifts that we have available to us. And I feel the more that we can positively disrupt our physiology in those times, it is of great benefit. And we're doing some stretching, we're waking up, we're kind of doing, these cat stretches in the morning,
Yep.
inviting in a little bit of a little bit of fluid, a little bit of nutrition. And then in the evening, if we can be as gentle, to your point about optimizing for sleep, you know, there's nothing that says we need to carry our day into our night.
Mhm.
And this is where I think healthy boundaries and discernment, we can mention those, because if we are bending over backwards and doing for everyone else, boss, kids, partner, parents, friends, and we're not doing for ourselves, it's going to be really hard to fill anybody else's cup from ours, because we're going to be depleted all the time because we're constantly outputting. We're not creating positive inputs. So you mentioned kind of slowing down into the evening. What would be another few tidbits people could take with them about how to be able to sleep more soundly, how to be able to fall asleep easier, and then on the waking up side, how to be ready for that alarm, or almost, maybe even beat our alarm if we can get our circadian rhythm, back in alignment.
So, 3 things that really helped me is, first, I don't sleep with electronics.
Mm,
So my electronics couldn't be further away, and I'm speaking like mobile phone, my watch, because it's a smartwatch or a laptop computer or anything like that. They couldn't be
Tablet.
further away from my bedroom than they are right now. Um, my alarm clock, interestingly enough, now that I'm thinking about it, is actually not plugged in the wall. It has
So
batteries in it,
batteries, yeah.
but I don't know. So everything is there, and I also don't have any charging going on at night.
Mm,
I don't like the distraction. So I like a really cool, dark environment. So, like, firstly, no electronics. Secondly, the temperature and the light is really important. And thirdly, what I do is I kind of like have a certain routine of things that I do in the
mm.
evening. So I the last thing I do with my electronics is I do my French lesson on my Duolingo,
I
and it
love it.
puts me in a very positive mindset.
Yeah.
Ooh la la, I'm thinking about France, and, I learned something in the evening,
Uh-huh.
new words, 5 minutes of Duolingo. I've been doing this now for, like, 2 or 3 years, so I
That's
have
great.
a streak going, and then I just do that, and that's the last thing. Then I know, okay, after Duolingo, I go to bed. Yep,
Yeah,
and then I put my phone away,
yeah,
and, like, there might be something else, some stretching or something, but afterwards, it's, like, pretty much
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So focusing on something for us.
Yep.
It could be a craft, it could be a painting we've been working on, it can be reading a chapter in the book, it can be, getting through a lesson in Duolingo. So,
Oh, yeah.
so much of our day is done for others, so taking that time and doing for ourselves, that's yeah, it's huge.
And yeah, and I think what's nice too is that whatever you do, try to kind of think of it's just like when you pick up the phone, you don't need to see people, but
Mm,
when you were to smile, people actually hear it. So think of your sleep like that. You kind of want to fall asleep with a smile on your face. And
yeah,
while we can always do that, do something that really adds that joy so that when you close your eyes, you have positive thoughts
mm,
in your mind. Those could be memories, or those could be just things that you were excited about that you just did, that
yeah,
reading or the crafts or the Duolingo or whatever.
yeah. I like to add, for my own a lot of times I recommend to clients and then for my own practice, I'll add brain balancing and
Yep.
some light breath work. Because a lot of times we're carrying stress with us and we don't realize we're in a dominant hemisphere stress response. And so brain balancing techniques can be really powerful to get us in a place that we are more present, we are more settled, so we can do for ourselves. We can do do the thing that lights us up without, maybe it's a little bit of a challenge learning a new language, putting a 1,000-piece puzzle together, whatever it is. It kind of shifts us into that space a little more readily. And I find, breath work and brain balancing combined with any of these other practices that may sound good can really be beneficial, especially utilizing that that twilight between waking and sleep. And I feel like this is where you're going, where if we can, as we're drifting off, if we can call to mind things we're grateful for.
Yes.
So it doesn't need to be a gratitude journal. It can be very, very easily, but it can just be a few moments of, you know what, I was so grateful for whatever today. And we just get into this energetic state of peaceful presence, gratitude, helps to settle the entire mind body system because we're informing our system, no, remember we stopped the stressful thing because we turned the page, we're shifting into the slow evening, and we're just supporting this new habit. And so it might not be overnight. Again, you do these things for one day, you might not get a great night's sleep because there's still a you know sometimes decades, a lifetime of habits that have been counter to these that have been built up. But if we give it some time, we just do it, set it and forget it without attachment to the outcomes, that can be really where we find beautiful developments that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to experience otherwise.
Completely agree, and what helps me too is, I have, a body lotion
Mm,
that, is actually it's made in England, and when I smell it, it really, has this beautiful scent in it, and it
yeah,
reminds me of something positive that I've done.
beautiful.
So, um, sometimes it's hard for the mind to not think about stressful situations.
Yeah.
But if you close your eyes and it is dark, as I just said, and it is cold, you might actually smell it, and it's like, "Oh, man, that does smell good, huh?" And then you actually allow your mind to quickly get there.
Yeah,
It's really like you're smelling something delicious that reminds you of your childhood or, positive memories, because you're helping your mind to get there quicker to this gratitude.
exactly. And scent sense of smell is such a powerful vehicle that can, I mean, as far as memory and
Yeah,
associated with smell. So if you find one that's that positive memory, it is kind of like just, like wrapping ourselves in our
exactly.
binky from when we were little, right as we're going to bed. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can have a diffuser on in your
Yeah.
bedroom. You could have a salt lamp on,
Yeah.
which creates these positive ions. You could even have, like a little spray just on your pillow, something like
Yeah.
that.
Like a lavender mist or something.
Yeah, a lavender mist.
Yeah.
I put usually like some kind of lotion on my back,
Hmm.
to kind of relax the muscles, and it's all like, play around with it, what works for you.
Absolutely. I love it. And then, yeah, so what if, anything specific for if we wake up? Because a lot of times people have that waking up like at 2, 3, 4 in the morning,
Um,
sometimes challenges getting back to bed, sometimes not. What'd you say for those
yeah,
individuals?
I'm not a good person either when it wakes up, I have to
Mm,
be honest with you, and, my husband is amazing. He wakes up and he just goes right back to sleep.
yeah.
For me, what really helps is, A, I don't look at the clock.
Yeah.
Because if I know it's 2 o'clock, then I'm, like, doing the math, like, "How long can I still sleep?" And it's not good because so I try, let's say you wake up, you maybe heard an airplane, or maybe you need to go to the bathroom, or maybe there was a different sound. Just keep your eyes closed as much as
Mm,
you can.
mm,
Try not to, engage any other senses than the fact that you're moving your body around. If you really can't fall asleep, like, this is usually the recommendation, that works well, is try to focus on one body part at a time.
mm.
Kind of like, a body scan. "Alright, my feet are sleeping now. My leg is sleeping now." I know it
Yeah.
sounds really goofy, but it actually really helps because
No,
you're telling your body piece by piece or body
yeah,
part per body part, "It's sleeping time. Come on. We can do this."
yeah.
It
It's
helps me.
that it's actually a body scan meditation. That
Yes.
there's a whole guided meditation of that where it's focusing and, relax your toenails.
Yes.
Relax your toes, relax your feet,
It helps.
relax your ankles, relax your shins, relax your calves. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, give your mind a better problem to focus on. Because to your point, our minds and our bodies are geared towards safety, and the way that our bodies express that is through, scanning for danger constantly. We're always kind of in this, heightened state of alert. So if we can bring our focus back to that physical experience, back to that body, and even as we're doing it, combine it with breath work. So, to Christiana's point, where we're focusing on a body part, if you can match your breath, inhale, relax your toes, exhale, let it settle.
Love it.
Inhale, relax your feet, exhale, let it settle. You might have a hard time getting up to the waist in a beautiful way. You may get up the head to the crown of the head, and then you may need to start over. It's all individual. But if we kind of it's almost like putting bumpers on a bowling alley in a bowling
Mhm.
lane.
Yeah.
We're staffing the weakness. We're getting into this place of focus, adding breath to it, and we're just letting anything else fade away. I think that could be a pretty good formula. And I love that you said, is keep your eyes. If you do wake up, try as much as you can to not activate any additional senses.
Oh, yeah.
And I've done that as well, where it's, sometimes I'll wake up, it's just one of those days I didn't taper off my hydration early enough, and I have to pee, 3, 4 in the morning. I'll just try and peek like squint a little bit so I can
Yeah.
feel my way to the bathroom, and then I'll sit down. I'll sit down to pee because I'm like, I'm not dealing with standing up right now. It takes too much. And then, as little effort as you can, get back into bed, let your breathing settle. If your mind's still racing, focus on something you have control over. You have control of your breath, you have control over your relationship with your mind body. And then you can get out of anything else mattering at that moment because nothing else does because it's time to sleep. And then we can shift back into it.
I love that. Yeah, and it's
I love it.
for me, it's really it's a total normal thing to get
Yeah.
up or anything. but at the same time, the more you can let your body still be in the sleep mode, so to speak,
Yeah.
the easier it's going to get by getting back into it, because you are not, waking up all these different senses. So
Yeah.
it's much easier then. Yeah, it's
It is.
optimizing your sleep.
Yeah, one step at a time, optimizing the sleep, optimizing our day. The next thing you know, without even thinking, we're optimizing our week and our month and our year.
Yeah.
And then you look back and we can be pretty amazed with how far we've come with and I will say, hindsight's 2020. And so, I've done these practices and looking back, even in the moments where I felt this is so hard, why am I even bothering? This is such a challenge. After a little bit of time of just being consistent with it, I look back and it's like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
Mhm.
And I feel really good now. So whatever hills I had to climb to get here, to me were worth it. But I feel like it's oh, go ahead, Sam.
It's completely normal, and we're all changing constantly,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, it could be that, you mentioned earlier your 5K, that running was just like second nature, and maybe now it's like it's harder to get into it. But
Yeah.
then after a month, it's like, it actually does feel good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like when I was getting back into it most recently, I started out running and I was like, I'm getting my butt kicked right now.
Yep.
I'm gonna walk the whole thing. And
Cool.
it was so great because the weight, the self-criticalness or the comparison was off my shoulders. I just let it go. And I was like, I don't care what, the person walking their dog is thinking. I'm walking and I'm just gonna focus on my footsteps and my breath. I'm gonna listen to my footsteps and I'm gonna listen to my breath. And that's all I'm gonna worry about. The next thing you know, I was back home. And I was like, wow, that was quick.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, easefulness and lightness and consistency where we can. And when there's less consistency, we're not going to beat ourselves up about it. We just pick it back up when we can. And it's one step at a time, one integration at a time, and you will get there. Wherever it is that you want to go, if you take the one step at a time, you will get there.
Yep, I always say one step at a time, and then eventually it's going to really be that big leap right
Mm.
there. And think about things that make you happy too,
Yeah.
because it's adding all to your plate, of joy.
Yeah, the mental aspect of all of it is, what quality of mind are we cultivating in any instance, in any, on the walk, at work,
Yep,
how much stress we're carrying with us. It all factors in. So yeah, the more body awareness I feel we can have, the more body autonomy we can have, because we're not worried about what anybody else is doing. We're just focused on how we're feeling. And the more we staff our weaknesses getting us to these places of better feeling states of being, the more reference points we have for what good feels like. And
exactly.
I find the easier it can be to get back if we do kind of, let things slide for a little while, which is, again, not a big deal. It's okay.
Yeah, sometimes in my fitness classes, I have people ask me like, "Oh, how many calories am I going to burn in this class?" It's like, if that's your main focus, I don't think you're going to be happy in this class. Because you shouldn't worry about this. You shouldn't do the workout because of the calories you're
R
burning.
Exactly.
And, you're probably not going to stick to it either,
Right.
because it already sounds right now that's the main driving factor.
Yeah.
So let's not focus on that. Let's just do it because you're actually enjoying the movement and it does feel good.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that's an attachment to an outcome too,
Mhm.
because it's
Yeah.
it's doing one thing with a hope that it affects something else,
Right. Yeah.
as opposed to I'm just here to breathe and to move.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let everything else fall by the wayside because my focus right now is just being here in this class.
Right. Mhm.
And if I can calorie count elsewhere if I need to or want to, but I find that that's almost scales and calories. I feel are as much of a hindrance as they are anything else. Where we are looking, it's like, oh, I work out and then I run straight to the scale. Oh my gosh, I gained weight. Well, yeah, because your body's retaining water because you just exercised.
And that
So
actually would be good. If you be heavier after you work out than before, it means that you're hydrated. That
right,
would actually be
exactly,
good. Mhm.
exactly. Yeah, so getting out of some of these old tropes that we've been kind of dragging with us, and just coming back to ourself and taking input from other people, but recognizing that at the end of the day, we are the captain of our ship, and this ship is ours to do with what we will. And it just depends on how how good do I want my ship to feel?
Positive
And
thoughts. I love that. Yeah.
yeah, 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 mental. It's all connected.
Good. Yeah, and I feel
Yeah,
everything that we kind of alluded to is also trial and error.
yeah,
Try it out, but give it a few days, give it a few weeks, and give it a few months, because it's not really like, well, that didn't work. Well,
yeah,
you don't do that. You try things out a little bit, and
yeah.
it will maybe feel good after a little while.
And that's really it. I always ask, well, how long did it take you to get to this place that you were not happy being?
Mhm.
Well, I guess it's taken ever since childhood. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, so let now comparatively, let's look at taking a couple months or a year to shift from where you want to be that took almost a lifetime to get to. I feel like that's a pretty fair trade. Recognizing it literally can't happen overnight. We're training ourselves in a new direction. So that, that lightfulness of being,
just
the
practice.
easefulness with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's practice. Exactly. I love it. We're just here practicing. That's all it is. Well, Christiana, thank you so much. This was a treasure trove of information and insight and practices, and I really love your individual approach to this equation that so many of us are looking to get a greater understanding of and a greater integration into life with. And so, how can people connect with you, and how can they stay up to date with what you're doing?
I would love to connect with the audience. There's always, you listen to something, you have questions afterwards, sometimes like these follow up discussions I would love to have. I'm available. Reach out to me via my website. It's hellohappynest.com. So the nest, as like feeling comfortable within your own
Mhm.
body and saying hello happy nest. I also have a podcast. It's called Happy Healthy Hustle, because if you think of taking out all the hustling, it's probably not going to happen in our life. But let's maybe do it in a way that it's happy and it's healthy. Happy Healthy Hustle is my podcast, and I would love for you to listen to any of them. There are more wellness tips in there. I try to make it really accessible for everybody to find a little bit, to maybe add that when you're driving somewhere or you're visiting family, you can listen to that podcast on your journey.
Beautiful. Christiana, health, happiness, and fitness coach. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for all your wisdom and insight and experience and being able to share that with the audience. And if you do have anything to follow up, please do reach out to Christiana on her website. And also for more valuable information, check out Christiana's podcast. And all the links will be in the show notes as well.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks so much, Christiana. Thank you for listening, and looking forward to hearing your feedback. Please let us know what you thought about this episode, and looking forward to next time as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time.